Let me refresh real quick and see if
We had to
join the
all,
meeting pops
I
up.
think everybody unlog or log out and then log back in to get it to work.
Now let me see if refreshing it will do the trick. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I refreshed, join the meeting option came up, so I just joined.
Okay. Awesome. And how's the volume for you, Mrs. Frank?
Volume is good. How's my volume?
Do you want it down some more? I can adjust it down.
Oh no, your volume is good. I can hear you just fine. How is my volume coming across?
All right, we ready?
Okay.
Yes. I'll call the meeting to order at 7:03. Roll call. All members are here. Ms. Frank, excuse me, is joining us telephonically, and we will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we stand for a moment of silence, as we're 6 feet away or however far away we are, hope all of our employees, families, community members are keeping together their heads during this time, and hopefully we'll be in the same room, and hugging will continue. So that's that. Anybody else have anything to add to that? All right. Let us sit. And
I move that the governing board adopt the agenda with the exception of moving action items 5D and 5E directly following agenda item 2B.
I second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed, and my voting is not. Oh, here it is. Yay. All right. Governing board reports. Mrs. Reed?
Well, it's been an interesting 6 days of home learning at the Reed House. We've had our good days and we've had our bad days. And we've had some temper tantrums and tears, and not all of them have come from me. So that's been promising. I just want to say thank you to our teachers for all of the communication that they've been providing to our students, the stories that they've been reading and sending, all of the Zoom calls, emails checking in on kids. I mean, just there's so many positive stories that are going around, and just want to shout out to the parents. I've got an education degree, and I'm struggling. So I think we're all in the same boat. We're not going to be perfect. My second grader looked at me the first day of home learning and said, "I'm not doing it. Summer started. You can't make me." So there. So,
Well, there is that.
So, and then my high schooler put together Zoom conferences with his friends so they could all do their homework together. So we fall on all ranges of the spectrum at our house. So just want to say, I'm in the same boat as you, parents, and I get it. And I just want to say thank you for sticking in there and hanging in there with us. And I trust our district leadership that they know what they're doing and that they're working hard. And just department leads and executive staff, thank you so much for all of the hours that you've been putting in just to support your teachers and answer questions from the community, keep everybody updated and on the same page. So I appreciate all of the work that you guys have been doing as well. Thank you.
Miss Tweedy.
I was able to participate in a Zoom conference with representatives Toma, Carol, and Bartow. And so I'll just give an update of what they said on the education issues that they've been talking about. Representative Toma was explaining, and he felt that the budget they adopted shouldn't be characterized as a skinny budget. He said that they passed the 5% for teachers, and I'm hearing myself twice. They passed the 5% for the teacher raise as promised, and there was 170 million in additional district assistance in the budget that was approved. And he was explaining that from their perspective, the large surplus they had a meeting on the 9th with an update if there is even going to still be a surplus. So he said some of the challenges they're considering is how the closures have affected different groups and what the cost of the no eviction order will be, and moving the filing deadline to July 15th will move a lot of the revenue they move into next fiscal year. So he said when they go back on the 30th, and that was the reason for the budget that they approved, they don't know what's left of the surplus or how much all of these other things are going to cost or the impact on the groups. I haven't talked to him since the 9th, so I don't know what happened at that or what they were told. Senator or Representative Bartow was discussing a bill that she sponsored to increase the availability of alternate testing to SPED students. And she said it was in the Senate when I talked to her, so I'm not sure if anything changed with that. And she said that there's another bill that was currently in the loop about doing a better job to track discipline on non-certificators at charter and public schools, so that that there would be access to their discipline records as there is for teachers that were certified through the Department of Education. So she was thinking that would be a good thing, and that was basically what they shared with us. So I just thought I would pass that along.
Thank you. Mrs. O'Brien?
Thank you. I would like to say thank you to our district, everywhere from Dr. Finch all the way down to every staff member for their Herculean efforts. Get us online for home learning and keep us going forward. I do appreciate that we took things a little slower than some other districts, so that there hopefully weren't. I realize there were still some bumps in the road, and still will be, but applause to all of you for all that's been happening. I appreciate all the communication that's going out on a daily basis from the district, as well as our teachers and principals who are communicating with their communities. I've been watching a lot of social media because you have a little extra time on your hands. Not my favorite thing to do, but it is a good way to kind of keep the pulse on the community. And I kept, except for a couple of comments here and there, which we try to get addressed, I would say we're seeing a lot of positive feedback about what's going on in the community, and some good learning going on out there. So thank you. I'm excited to hear what's going to happen with our new learning starting next week, and our update from you all today. I have been looking at some of the updates from the Arizona School Boards Association, from their the legislative staff and legal staff. So I'm interested to hear more about our budget tonight. And I know that the states and the cities are worried about the impact of sales tax and income tax and what that's doing to our budgets. And I hope we as a district will be mindful of that as well. But otherwise, I just am very thankful to be a part of Deer Valley, and you all are extraordinary.
Thank you. Ms. Frank?
I would just also, I've been sort of out of the loop a little bit with some things I've had going on, but I would like to say thank you to Dr. Finch for your leadership, and to your admin team for their leadership as well, all the way down from our principals to our certified and our classified. It's all the communication has been great. It seems like everyone's doing an amazing job under some extremely difficult and challenging circumstances. And a special shout out to those essential workers in our district who are not sheltering in place at home because they're out there on the front lines making sure that our students get food, for example. So a special shout out to all of those folks. because I'm fortunate that I can telework from home. I'm not out there putting myself out there in the middle of a pandemic. So just a thank you to everyone who's keeping our kids safe, keeping our kids fed, and keeping them educated.
Thank you. So, University of Arizona Medical, I don't know if anybody went on that call, but we were invited to be on that call, and they talked about producing masks, but more of what they were talking about was with legislators to see what kind of money they were interested or able to set aside for them to have another lab so they can figure out, because they've been looking at this coronavirus, not this strain, but this coronavirus for the last 12 years. So they're looking to see if it makes sense to test all citizens to see what the titers are, who's a carrier, who's not. And then they were talking about some of the logistics of actually being able to say we've tested everyone. So there were legislators. Senator Carter was on the call, and there was a group. Also, they talked about the revenue that they're losing as a university because there will not be students from abroad that will be coming. So everybody's feeling that pinch of not having the students coming back. And that's what the problem is. So it's the same thing as not having the taxes, the stimulus checks that are going to come. I don't know where you're going to spend them, maybe on toilet paper if you can find it, but everybody is trying to work together. So all that I've seen with all the Zooms, the parades that have gone on, so on and so forth, phone calls, our ability to have our wellness counselors that we work with Southwest Behavioral not only be available for our students, but for their families is incredible. So the relationship part of the home learning, I think, is something we need to know. Academics are going to be great, all the things that they're going to learn, but I think the most important part is that the kids see the teachers are seeing the kids are seeing their peers. And it's a little bit of normal in this abnormal time. So through our perseverance, tenacity, resourcefulness, flexibility, camaraderie, and patience, we are going to get through this because we are one of the best districts. What did I say? One of the best? The best. Because we've got hardworking people. Food service has served over 60,000 meals in the last how many weeks? Close to it?
Over 130,000.
Over 130,000 meals. And it's crazy because, they're cranking them out just like it was another day for them. So we have our print shop is up, making sure that we have all of the signs at the schools. We have our plant foreman doing what they do. All the nurses are around. So we have a great district, and here we are. So I thank my board members and all you people that are in here. I know we can see you, but we will get through this. And Dr. Finch.
All
So
right.
it's done.
I think I'm actually in charge of awards, and I think Dave's going to put up the PowerPoint. They trusted me with the clicker, so.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Who?
This is not.
Who?
I'd say there's a 60-40 chance this will go correctly. Miss Allred even typed me up a script. She doesn't trust me with a microphone without it, so I'm gonna.
She called us, and we.
Yep, she knows how I work. So tonight we're holding an awards and recognition ceremony led by Dr. Finch. And although our honorees aren't here in the room, we'll celebrate them virtually now and soon on social media. Certificates and logo pins will be mailed to your honorees, to our honorees. So, boom, worked.
Well, look at them.
Look at that. We are pleased to recognize two of our DVUSD principals who have been awarded the Outstanding Administrator of the Year by the Arizona Music Educators Association. The Outstanding Administrator Award is given in recognition of demonstrated leadership concerning music instruction within Arizona schools.
And what are their names, Dr. Finch?
Let's see. Let's press it again. Well, I guess that's it. No, I'll start and read the next one. Shanna Leva, clap your hands. What?
Woo, woo, woo. Can we hear it in the crowd?
I guess we're going to go with this slide right here. Shanna Leva is principal at Constitution Elementary, is an unwavering advocate for music, art, and physical education programs. She has been largely responsible for the exponential growth of the band program since 2013. Prior to her arrival, the program averaged 50 to 60 students, and it now includes more than 110.
Did you say 110? So is that almost
Went
double?
over the 100 mark. Shanna supports the students by attending their performances and serves as a master of ceremonies for most of the concerts. She supports the staff by encouraging collaboration and professional development throughout the district and supporting field trips and competitions. Second one is Jamie Wilbur, principal.
Woo! From No Excuses.
Yes, that's a capacity crowd here. Given a standing or sitting O. Jamie Wilbur, principal at Mirage Elementary, is focused on finding ways to help make her students and staff succeed. Being a Title I school means many families do not have the ability to participate in music festivals. Jamie makes sure that all students are provided the opportunity to participate. She attends not only the concerts on campus, but also attended solo and ensemble festival performances as well. Jamie encourages staff to attend off-campus professional development and encourages collaboration throughout the district. Her willingness to learn and understand content area just demonstrates that she respects all educators regardless of subjects taught. Congratulations to Arizona Music Education Association's Outstanding Administrators of the Year, DVUSD Principals Shanna Leva and Jamie Wilbur.
Woo!
Checks in the mail. And that's one half of my presentation.
Okay.
The other part is just a reminder from Miss Allred that we have accelerated, I guess would be the right word, our Deer Valley Voice, and we're doing it weekly. And so
Yes.
Thanks to her team that stepped up, and many of the district office folks have to write articles for that as well. But we're all working together with the theory of being getting more information to staff. So we've had the highest reader level ever.
Can we clap for Monica?
We can do. Way to go, Monica. Monica and team are doing a nice job bringing out the Deer Valley results there. Also today and yesterday, I don't know if you had a chance to view it yet, but on Periscope had a chance to do live construction update at Bel Air and at Union Park. Walked around and talked about where they're at and what they're doing. And obviously the pandemic has given us some opportunity to accelerate our construction projects since there are no students in particular at Bel Air, and staff will be removing their things coming up as well, so we can start demolition in the other parts of the building that we didn't have access before. So that will move on, probably be on step then. And obviously Union Park is going well. The only hiccups that we will have probably in the future will be if there are any materials that are delayed from other countries and or other states that are struggling with factories producing a particular thing that we might be looking for. So, but in general, projects seem to be on time and making progress. That's it from Dr. Finch.
Why, thank you.
We're going to do the principals now?
Yes.
Okay. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation for the principal of Sonoran Foothills School, Darlene Baumgartner.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And like we'd make believe she's standing up and we're all clapping, but we already did that, so we'll clap anyway. Alrighty then.
All right. I move that the governing, oh,
No. Yes.
oh, there it went.
Aye.
All right.
No, thank you.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation for the principal of New River School, Dr. Tina Craig.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Woo! She's really not here. I'm waving. Okay.
And now we have the finance report from Ms.
Did everyone's pop up?
Mock.
Oh, yes, it did. We're just waiting for us to say it so you could. Okay. Next.
President Ordway, members of the board, guests and guests. I'm going to start this evening with the enrollment report. For the month ending in March, the last report we actually had was as of March 12th. As of March 12th, we were still up 0.3% over this time last year. We have started to continue tracking enrollment again now that the registrars are working from home. We're processing enrollments and withdrawals. And so we definitely want to keep an eye on that to make sure that we're not losing students during this time in this transition to the online learning. Although initial reports, once we start looking at them again, we are showing an increase of only about 0.2%. But when I compare that to the total number of students we are gaining, because we are still gaining from this time last year, it's about the same. And both last year, this time for the very end of March, we were looking at a 0.1 or 0.% increase over the year prior. And I think we tend to see more of an increase overall this time of year. So we tend to have a higher student count already toward the end of the year from it's going to sound totally opposite of what I'm saying. But because we have students coming from charters or homeschool to graduate maybe in high school, we tend to see a lot of a high increase toward the end of the year. So the growth that we're experiencing isn't as great because we're just used to seeing those 1590 students, whatever it is. But we are going to continue to track that. And I think for the rest of the year, we're really just going to focus to make sure we're not losing, look for any trends where we're not on trend with what we tend to have for our increases to make sure that we're not doing something wrong when it comes to our online learning. And I'll take any questions about the enrollment report.
I have a question.
Sure.
How are we tracking the traditional academy at Bel Air? How's that going? And also, how is the Union Park enrollment?
So I will let Mrs. Moffett take Bel Air. They're tracking the open enrollment request, but Jenna has that information.
So we are able to identify how many people will be coming so long as they have completed their open enrollment application and actually register. So I don't have that number, but can provide it for you in the update, let you know how many are currently not necessarily enrolled, but have been approved for
Because I was
open
wondering
enrollment.
how that's affecting Greenbrier Mirage.
Yes. We actually did meet about that today and also have a meeting with Mirage to discuss that tomorrow, just to make sure we're appropriately in addressing those things.
And you're going to do Union Park?
Union Park is, I'm not as well versed on that process. We've got the roll-ups from, go ahead, Jenna.
So we've done the best we can in projecting who we believe will enroll at Union Park. So transportation provided a lot of information to us. We have looked through those numbers. We believe we are as accurate as we possibly can be right now. We did just complete this week too our first round of open enrollment at that location. And so right now we're going to pause, not knowing exactly how many kids are going to show up. We had a healthy amount open enroll, and we're going to pause for now, likely on open enrollment. So we'll see where we come in as far as where we're projected. The principal, Tricia Graham, is currently holding on to FTE that she is not going to fill, believing that we might not need it, but she does have it sitting in her own contingency should we see the summer time go by, maybe around June, and she feels that she will need that additional staff.
Mrs. O'Brien? No. Anybody? I'm just looking at me. Okay. Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. That takes us to the report that Mrs. O'Brien was looking forward to, the M&O budget report. Unfortunately, at this time, we don't have anything other than a lot of moving pieces that we don't know where they're going to land. So as a reminder, this report is as of the end of March, and we certainly have known more in the last couple weeks than we did at the end of March. We're still projecting a slight increase to what we were projecting for an M&O carry forward at the end of February with the total amount of $1.269 million, and the majority of that still coming from classified staffing. But just to mention some of the parts that we know are up in the air or that will be affecting the M&O carry forward, that we will see our final projection with our budget revision next month. So we will know much more then. But the pieces that we're looking at are we're not currently staffing vacant classified staff positions. So we will see some additional increases and carry forward from those. Some of our contracted services that we're no longer needing to use because of the home learning model. We're going to see some savings from there.
Heather, could you stop and go back to right before the home learning?
The vacant classified positions.
Could you say that again?
Yes, we are not currently staffing or filling any of the vacant classified positions. I think we've made a couple of exceptions. Correct. Not for next year, for current year. So any position that was available when the stay-at-home order started, we're leaving vacant unless it's given special exception as needed. And I think we've given one or two of those. But blanketly, we're going to leave those vacant. We will continue to staff for 2021 and make sure they are staffed for there. But if we don't need them this year, then we're going to keep that as savings because I think we'll need it moving forward. We will see our carry forward increase as well once we do the budget revision from our increase. As we've said throughout the whole year with the enrollment report, aggregate from first day to 100th day, we saw anywhere from 0.4 to 0.5% increase in students. So we will see that with the budget revision as well. Those are all the good news. The bad news is that we have some funds, such as our food and nutrition fund, community ed fund, print shop, that are all self-funded. And so like the rest of the staff that are funded by M&O or other funds, we are continuing to pay them as we're allowed per House Bill 2910 for the rest of the school year, but they don't have any more money coming in. They've got no revenue. So we know that perhaps with some of the M&O monies that we may have to backfill and make sure that we've got enough for them. So there's going to be a little bit of give and a little bit of take and a little bit of science and art to making sure that we have a really good estimate on what our carry. But we do expect it to continue to increase.
So with the food services, because we don't have customers inside, how do we get reimbursed for the meals that we are distributing? Whoever wants to take that one.
President Ordway, we are feeding those meals under the federal summer feeding program. So there is a reimbursement rate that we receive from the federal government, from the National School Lunch Program, for the meals that we serve.
And how timely are they in paying us for that? I don't know how else nicely to say it. What's the lag time?
This is all new. So
right.
I don't know that we have. During the summer, it's usually at least a 1 month delay on receiving, at a minimum, to receive a reimbursement from the summer feeding program. I'm just going to speculate that it's probably going to be more than what we normally would see, just because the volume that's happening nationwide.
So we're paying our vendors without reimbursement in the near future?
That's correct. Not only our vendors, but our employees as well.
Well, yeah, I'm aware of the employees, but it's okay. Wow. So that's like a big number, right?
Yeah, the food service operation is about a $12 million
Yeah.
annual operation.
Okay. All right, just wanted to throw that out there in case somebody from the federal government's listening and wants to move it a little bit faster for our school district.
You know they're listening.
Go ahead, Heather. I'm sorry to interrupt
That's
you.
okay, Mrs. Ordway. If they go in alphabetical order, at least we've got a fair chance of being at the beginning of the reimbursements. I know. Still better than being a Z. Yeah. No, I think that unless you have additional questions, really, we expect to see more carry forward. We just don't know what the final number is going to be. We'll make our best guess for the budget revision prior to May 15th, but truly we won't know the actual carry forward until we close out the year, which won't be till the end of August.
Yes, Mrs.
Question.
O'Brien.
Do we have to reimburse funds for community ed services or classes at any point?
Yes. Community Ed has actually been in the process of processing refunds through their registration software.
Okay.
So they use the program called LEO, and they can process the refunds directly from there. And it's an EFT process that goes directly back into the customer's accounts. So they're doing that with the before and after, the preschool and any of the enrichment classes. I think they've processed all of the refunds for the enrichment classes already. And when last I spoke with them, I think they were just down to the before and after school programs, crediting about half the month of March to all those who had paid for it.
Okay. And what about summer school enrichment or summer enrichment classes? Had we started enrollment on that and payment acceptance?
For the before and after school program?
For any of the community
Sensational
ed.
Summer, Sensational Summer starts in another week. It originally was scheduled to start, I think, April 1st or early in April. So that registration for that will be starting soon. We just don't know when we'll be able to start the program for sure. And I think Dr. Galligan and Dr. Zarbach can talk about any of the other summer programs we've got too.
Okay, so then that'll probably be part of the COVID report, and I can wait for that later. I'll ask it during that part because I think it'll be a more appropriate time. Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And it might be that appropriate time right now. Pass the baton or the clickers.
Okay. Good evening, President Ordway, members of the board, and Dr. Finch. It is our pleasure here tonight to provide you with a second round of the COVID-19 report to you. So this is a follow-up to our first update that we did for you in March. Mr. Miglarino, Dr. Galligan, and I will be updating you with some important information in terms of how it affects various aspects of our operation here at the district. Okay, items to cover. We're going to start off by talking to you about some of our sunshine stories. These are some real anecdotal stories of success that we have heard about, and we think it's important to share those both for you and to those that are listening in to hear about the, as you said, Ms. O'Brien, the Herculean efforts that many of our staff members are putting forth. Then we'll update you with some of those department updates and then finish with a preview of the next 2 weeks. Okay, so with our sunshine stories, there are some adorable pictures here, which we'll get out in a moment. But we have 3 particular schools that shared out today at the administrator virtual meeting. And so we are going to share with you those stories as well. And I'm going to start with asking Dr. Galligan to talk about Bel Air. Dr. Galligan?
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. This first one is from Jackie DeTore, principal of Bel Air, and it's from one of her second grade teachers. And I'm just going to read because it is that special. My kids have done an awesome job on Zoom. They've been doing the assignments online, and today we had a book sharing and discussion questions for reading this morning. And this afternoon we solved some math problems together, and they have all gone on the Scholastic News article and video that I told them yesterday that we would be talking about today. And they all did, and we had a discussion just like we normally would do in our brick and mortar class. They are so excited that they have access now to the videos and games and the articles that we would do on the smartboard. A few even had their parents watch and play the games with them. 2 of my students even did some extra reading research online last night about Harriet Tubman and shared it with the class. One of the paras that works with our kids and I learned new facts about Harriet Tubman. I'd like to give a shout out to our para. He has been coming on every day to see the kids. Our special ed student lights up every morning when he sees them on the screen and waves and claps. Just like in my class, my kids make sure to include our student simply by saying, "Did you like that story?" And he nods, or today his mom told us what he did online, and the kids cheered and said, "Good job." They have all said some of the nicest things to each other. I also called the teacher today, and I told her that they made connections with our story this morning to her and remembered things she told them in a library class. This is the librarian. They said they missed her and to tell her thank you for the book sites, so I did. So this is one story from Bel Air and a second grade teacher that shows that even though we're learning in a different location, connecting kids with kids and kids with the teacher has powerful impact for children.
Thank you, Dr. Galligan, and thank you, Bel Air. Our next sunshine story comes from Deer Valley High School. Principal Kim Crooks highlighted today for the group that one of her EL teachers has gone above and beyond in terms of setting up some experiences for her students. In fact, she has arranged for a Zoom meeting with the mayor of Glendale to talk about leadership and the importance of leadership in our community. And so we look forward to hearing more about that next week when that meeting actually occurs. And again, as Dr. Galligan just mentioned, just another story of folks stepping up and going above and beyond. And then our third story is at Sunrise. And just as Dr. Galligan did, I want to read this to you as well, as it is an amazing story. And this is from Principal Dial. I wanted to take a moment and share some pics with you from this week. Never in my wildest dreams would I have imagined how much my teachers would have accomplished in 4 short days. They have embraced this new reality and are making lemonade out of lemons. I could not be more proud and wanted to share this with you. These pictures are just great examples of what my staff is doing. In the 3rd grade Zoom room, which you can see the picture there, all of our kids are raising their hands when they are wanting to speak. They are taking turns and they are following directions. The teacher was reviewing the lesson in the Google Classroom and checking for understanding, that they all knew what to do. Kids were told to come back at 1 o'clock to do the assessment and debrief the learning. In the chat box, kids were complimenting each other about things about the classroom and also about what they could see on the video, the color of kids' bedrooms or their bedspreads. I literally teared up when I was in there. A parent also sent me this pic of her kinder kiddo, and you can see this young little girl here in this priceless photo. The music teacher was the secret guest on the Zoom for that day, and he taught the girl and the other students in her class various songs and dances. She participated along, and look at her face of pure joy. A parent sent an email to Principal Dial with the following. Principal Dial, today was great and I couldn't have asked for more. I would like to personally thank you for all that you and your staff are doing for me and my family. The boys were able to learn and are enjoying themselves. The boys are also very interested in the classroom. I know this is not easy for you and your staff. So from this family, you guys are making a difference. So again, just another story showing the great things that folks are doing. Okay, so some other important updates that we wanted to share with you tonight. The first one from ALS is I wanted to make sure that you are aware of some of the additional social emotional supports that are up on the web. If you recall from our first meeting or our first update in March, I talked to you about some of the mental health services, and President Borway, you mentioned that as well in your opening, as far as how Southwest Behavioral is supporting us, as well as other agencies as well. In addition to that, though, we have worked to compile other resources that are out there, and these are just 2 examples. There are many that are listed on our website. The first one is from the CDC. It provides some talking tips for parents, and the second one is from one of our social emotional programs, All Things EQ, which is providing some daily lesson plans and really providing some good information and some inspiration for our families and for our teachers. And so we know that many of our staff members are taking advantage of that information as well that's up on there. Also, we have continued on with our communication. You've heard that several times already tonight, that we are doing our best to over-communicate. We know that through our change theory framework of McCrell that there is a second order change, and one of the correlates is the importance of communication. We think that the pandemic is probably 5th order change, even beyond second order change perhaps, and so the importance of the communication is highly valued. So you see here there are 3 pictures of 3 of the central office staff members as we keep the leaders informed as to what things are changing and to any other of the important updates. It is pretty incredible to see. Sometimes we have over 150 people that are on that call, and folks asking questions in the chat box, various leaders responding to those questions and seeing us move along. And dancing. We do have some singing at times, that's true. There is some music. And so we can plan to continue doing this on a weekly basis. We had 2 weeks ago, we were averaging 2 or 3 of these each week, but we have 1. We did 1 last week, we did 1 this week, and we probably will continue with 1 for the remainder of the closure. Also, with respect to communication, I put this in a board update, but just to remind you, we do have a updated email address. That's COVID-19 concerns at dvusd.org. We put that in one of our daily updates for the parents. So that's just a nice general email. So for parents with any question that they might have with respect to how this is impacting them, that email gets sent, it's checked daily, and it's routed to the appropriate personnel to make sure that they get a response on that. We also had an updated set of FAQs that were posted last week. Those are on the website. They are in English only right now. The Spanish set should be posted by the end of this week. The FAQs are a little bit lengthy, so it's taking a little bit of time for that translation, but it will be up, and it does have some great information from the parents. Also, Dr. Finch is continuing with some of his video messages. Specific to our parents, as I just mentioned, our daily updates since March the 30th, we have provided an update for the parents. Sometimes that is emailed out, sometimes that goes to text messages, and sometimes it is just posted. We remind parents in every communication that they should check the website to make sure that they see that. We do that by 4 p.m. each day, and it does contain some good information for our parents. When the information is of high importance, we can call it that. That is when we will email that out or text that, and we make sure that our staff receive that as well. And so our teachers are informed of what the parents are receiving. Specific to staff with respect to communication, I mentioned this in a board update as well, but we are trying to streamline that communication for the administrators. They are the same, they are experiencing what we are experiencing. There is an inundation of emails that are coming through. You can wait, Dr. Galligan and I, even Mr. Miglorino and I were talking today, you can wait 1 hour and receive over 100 emails in that hour that come in. And so because of that, we are working to make sure that we have one message that's consolidated containing various department updates, and we send that to the administrators at the end of the day. And so we'll continue attempting to do that for them as well. I already mentioned that the staff can receive the parent postings. And then Dr. Finch mentioned the Deer Valley Voice on a weekly basis. And then I put videos as well, as Dr. Galligan has also contributed to that, making sure that for some of those important messages that the staff will receive that. And I believe she's even working on one for this week as well. Okay, just with some other items, our federal programs, I did want to highlight them. They are really doing some amazing things. This group, they work to help our school-dependent families, right? For those families that they just would not experience success if it were not for the support of the school. And so they're helping our homeless families. They're helping our students that are in the group homes. Any of our families that are in super high need, we have folks that are out there checking in on them, bringing them devices to their group homes, making sure that they connect in. Patricia and Stephanie, they are checking with our homeless families on a routine basis, making sure that they're getting the supports that they need. And so they're truly doing an amazing job. Dr. McCusker and I also did a check-in with Vista Peak. You can imagine that they have some unique challenges as well. So even during the normal school year, they have unique challenges. And so during the closure, that is no different. So we did a check-in with Principal Feinberg and did some processing with him, did some dialoguing about some of the issues that he's facing and helping him make progress there. But they too are doing great things for the students that are at Vista Peak. We have some professional developments that we are recrafting too. So we have things for our aspiring principals. We have some PDs for our assistant principals that we intend to continue delivering to our folks, but they'll need to be done in a different manner. And so those will be done virtually, and we are working on those now. And then we also have the big one. Probably the elephant in the room is the graduation ceremony for many of our parents, obviously those that are parents of our senior students. And so we are working on that as well. There's communication that will go out to our parents this week. In fact, it'll go out tomorrow. It is the update on that. If you recall, on April the 2nd, we provided our first communication to our senior parents on this. We have not made a decision on this yet. We are working closely with our partner districts in the NEVIC group. We are also working with the representatives in State Farm Stadium, and also as we monitor the governor and the local and state health departments to see what restrictions will or will not be lifted with respect to the mass gatherings. And so we will continue to update our parents and work on that, because we know that that is truly a cherished event. It's a rite of passage for the parents and their students, and we know they want it to occur. We just have to make sure that it's safe to do so. And so we'll continue monitoring that and communicating out. And then I did put here a quick asterisk, just resuming activities for non-COVID pieces. So although this is the COVID update, there are items that we need to continue on, just doing them in a different manner. So President Ordway, you brought up one, the traditional Academy at Bel Air. And so that is something that I would say we got more into full force again this week as far as addressing with Principal Hunt and Ms. Allred. What strategies will we use for our recruitment, given that we can't have open houses right now and we had some planned? And so looking at how to do that virtually and looking at some of our other marketing strategies too. And so some of the items that are like that, it's now time to make sure that we're not losing that, because it will come sooner than we know. Okay, and so with that, I want to ask Dr. Galligan to update us with respect to our home learning.
So what you see here is the DVUSD home learning philosophy, and this has framed our work for the past 4 weeks, including last week and this week for review instruction by our teachers. This week, we are focusing on new learning, which begins next week and will last for the last 5 weeks of the school year. I want to take a moment to thank 3 very specific teams: the home learning steering team, the grading team, and the low-tech, no-tech solution team, each made up of teachers, administrators, and district staff. Without their input and coming together virtually, we would not have all of the processes, procedures, and expectations outlined for ourselves, our teachers, and to share with our parents. So I wanted to give them kudos, because they are truly heroes in helping us get ourselves online. Next slide. So our learning platforms are consistent by grade band. Our K2 teachers can use either SchoolWire's website, their teacher website, or Canvas or Google Classroom. It's a decision that's made by the campus for an entire grade. So every teacher at a particular grade is going to have the same thing, so that there's less confusion and they can collaborate together. Our teachers in grades 3-6 can use either Canvas or Google Classroom as well. And then 7-12 is Canvas specifically. Some of our middle school teachers have a link to Google Classroom on Canvas, but the expectation is that for grades 7-12, the hub is the Canvas Learning Management System. Our teachers are either using Zoom and now Google Meet as of today. We have been cautious and careful with both Zoom and Google Meet, being able to provide detailed direction and instruction on how to make sure that their meetings are safe and secure for students and themselves. We had been waiting for Google to have their most recent update that would change Google Meet and make it much safer, which is why we chose not to go forward with them first. Google Meet now meets our safety requirements and security, and so that is why, as of today, teachers can choose to use either Zoom or Google Classroom for their virtual meetings. So next slide. I have to say and give much appreciation and heartfelt thanks to Principal Cheyenne Leyva, who, when asked to lead the low-tech, no-tech team, graciously said yes, amidst all of the other things that she's done. She and her team of district and campus educators took on the Herculean task, and I know, Ms. O'Brien, you said that word too, Herculean task of creating meaningful review assignments for grades pre-K-12 for the last week and this week. They have also now created the next 2 weeks of new learning in those paper packets for our parents. I would also like to give a shout out to Martin James and his team at the Digital Print Shop for all of the learning packet printing. You can see the numbers there. Our first 2 weeks, 3,689 packets, made up of multiple pages. And then for this upcoming week, it's about just over 2,000 packets. What his team did was print everything, collate everything, package and distribute to our schools. So again, these 2 teams, led by Cheyenne and Martin James, I consider #extraordinary also.
And I would just echo that from what Dr. Galligan is saying, that the time frame that these folks had as well to accomplish it was a very, very narrow window.
Yep.
And so they truly did step up and accomplish a great feat in a very short amount of time. So thank you again to Principal Shanna and Martin
And their teams.
and their teams.
All right. For the previous 3 weeks, we've worked on teacher-directed review activities. Another goal of last week and this week has been to identify which students may have difficulty with accessing their teacher learning platforms. So we've really focused on review and then also finding our kids that are not they're MIA. Teachers have reached out to their remote learning and their paper learning packet students as well for that personal connection. When teachers have not been able to reach students after a period of time, that list of names goes to their administrator, and then the administrator is the one then that loops it out perhaps to the counselors, to the social worker, to other folks on the campus as another layer to let's go find out why these kids and families haven't been connected. And some of it sometimes is that we don't have accurate emails or we don't have accurate phone numbers. So we have to do some digging when we haven't found kids. We have defined weekly engagement, as you see there, as meaningful engagement is participation in a virtual meeting, either in Canvas or Google Classroom, our learning management system, in a meaningful assignment through an email or a phone call. Our pre-K-12 teachers will track student engagement with a process created by the school, and our principals, our amazing principals, have shared some of the documents, the Google Docs and forms that they are using to collect student engagement and attendance so that we all share our brilliance. Our expectation for new learning is that students participate in at least one meaningful engagement or task with evidence of learning, and that's the key part there, with evidence of learning per subject per week. So that's what we want to communicate. We've heard that some of our families are unsure that their kids need to participate, and per Governor Ducey, school is in session. So we want to make sure that what we are providing our students and our families is meaningful and builds on their necessary learning for the fourth quarter. Over the past 3 weeks, we have provided many expectations for home learning, including direction on virtual conferencing or virtual meeting. We clarified with our principals just today the teacher expectations for communicating and posting virtual meetings on teacher websites and in Canvas. So let me be specific here. Pre-K 6 has 1 hour per day virtual and by appointment. Many of our elementaries are doing 30 minutes in the morning and 30 minutes in the afternoon. In fact, Janet Zeke shared with me that her preschool teachers are also doing Zoom meetings with their kids, and they have had anywhere from 95% engagement with kids up to 50%, just depending on when it is. But in the morning, what they are doing is a story, and then in the afternoon, they talk about it. So it can happen in all areas. It's pretty cool. For 7th through 12th grade, 30 minutes per the number of daily courses the teacher offers. And that again is virtual and by appointment. And I know that there's been some confusion out there, and that's why we wanted to go back and completely clear that up. And it's clear as mud. So we are continuing to work through that so that it doesn't matter what school, what grade level, what teacher. Our expectations are clear for those virtual connections with students and teachers. Let me just explain a little bit more. Our pre-K 6 general ed teachers will create a weekly schedule for those sessions as well as for the activities that they're providing. Our 7-12 have set their times and ensure that in Canvas, kids have announcements, know exactly what they're supposed to be working on, as well as know when they can meet virtually. Now, we know that it's not perfect. I ask for your grace because these first 2 weeks were our first 2 weeks. Our teachers are working so hard. Our administrators are working so hard. And you have to think about 38 schools, that number of kids, and that number of teachers. So we just continue to communicate the expectations so that our communication can be appropriate and consistent for our parents and our kids. So I just ask for your grace as we continue on. Our expectation, though, is new learning starts next week, and this will be cleaned up in time for that. I did also want to share that our support staff, which include our counselors, social workers, psychologists, speech nurses, social workers, interventionists, reading specialists, all of those support staff are also providing 60 minutes per week of office hours. Our counselors actually are providing much more, but that was the expectation, is that they too are available virtually for students and parents. The tight expectation that I hope you hear and that we talked with our campus administrators about is that all schools teachers will post and communicate school-wide virtual office hours to their parents and students. And this will be consistent as we start new learning next week. Next one. So here is the important thing to know. We have 5 weeks left. Basically, that's 10 lessons per content or subject. That's it. What we are attempting to do is not typical online learning instruction. We are attempting to help all of our students connect with classes during the worldwide health pandemic. What we know about online learning under normal circumstances is that less is more. Because technology devices in many of our families will be shared by multiple family members, for schooling, for work, and life management, we have determined that we need to manage the time requirements expected for schooling activities. We are being very direct about those workload times as well. As I mentioned, we have 5 weeks of school left, about 10 lessons to provide the most essential standards to finish off the school year. The new learning that begins on Monday will have an intense focus on the most essential of the standards that have not been taught yet in each subject for each grade level. Our administrators reviewed the teacher agreements for home learning that will help provide consistency for learning for our students, teachers, and parents throughout the district. This is an agreement that will be shared with all teachers, and teachers will need to acknowledge with their administrator that they have read and they know what those expectations are. In addition, our administrators reviewed the new learning guidance document that was designed to give teachers at every grade level and for every content, including fine arts, PE, and intervention classrooms, a structured way to prioritize new learning for students beginning, again, Monday, April 20th, until the end of the school year. Campus administrators will share and review both of these documents and expectations with their teachers this week in preparation for next week. Next one. We extended the third quarter for K through 8 grades and the mid-semester mark for high school to this Friday, April 17th. From April 6th through 17th in K-8, students have the opportunity to improve their third quarter grades through this Friday, April 17th. For K-8 students, the third quarter will officially end on this Friday, and the fourth quarter will start on April 20th when teacher-directed instruction of new content begins. If grade improvement for third quarter grades is something that students want to do, they are encouraged to, and their teachers are accepting those assignments that perhaps were either missed or had a low grade to improve that third quarter or mid-semester grade. For high school students can continue to improve their second semester grades through the end of this semester. Given that new content will begin on Monday, high school students are encouraged to take advantage of this unique 2-week window also, last week and this week, to improve any of their assignments that they had in the second semester up through spring break is basically what we're looking at. We hope that they will submit assignments or assessments for grade improvement if that's something they want to pursue or their parents want them to pursue. And as you can see here, these are the expectations for grading as we have right now for last week and this week. We will update and communicate grading guidelines specifically for K-8 fourth quarter and high school end of the school year this Friday. That will go out to our parents. It'll go out to our administrators on Thursday and our parents on Friday. Next one. In accordance with instructional best practices and federal and state guidelines, all Deer Valley students who qualify for additional support are being provided opportunities for supplemental targeted instruction during home learning. This instructional support is in addition to the learning tasks assigned by the students' general education teachers. Dr. McCusker and Jamie Aldred have a team as well. It takes a village. It truly does. What I want to share with you for them is that specially designed instruction will begin on April 20th for all grade levels, including developmental preschool. That is going to be aligned and will deliver SDI or specially designed instruction based upon individual students' IEP goals. For our students who require modified instruction, Student Support Services will provide the goal aligned with the specially designed instruction, utilizing a system that we have, which is called Unique Learning System. And you know what the cool thing is for our paper packet students, we have also been able to provide them learning packets that utilize Unique Learning System. Teletherapy will begin on Monday. This will occur at all grade levels and may be cross-therapeutically delivered with another therapy discipline. IEP meetings are occurring on campuses. We are following federal guidelines to assure that IEP meetings are held with parental participation. 504 guidance has been provided to all 504 coordinators in Deer Valley with expectations during this time. Student Support Services has created a large guidance document titled Student Support Services, Job Roles and Responsibility During COVID-19 Home Learning. This document provides a scope of work for all Student Support Services staff members, and it is very comprehensive and a good document for all of our teachers and our administrators. Classroom teachers and support teachers and specialists are working together to determine the learning priorities for each individual student. If a student qualifies for multiple support areas, special education support takes first priority. For other cases, the team prioritizes the greatest area of need as the one that provides additional instruction. Again, we are trying to be simple, provide what we can without overwhelming to a large degree. If a student receives special services with small group instruction, such as a reading specialist intervention support, Math 180, Read 180, EL, or Spark enrichment support, they will continue to receive services from the specialist according to their needs. In most cases, this would be 1, potentially 2 times a week. These activities are in addition to the classroom activities and should are not taking the place of regular classroom work. And when we talk about that, we're talking about 15 minutes. 30 minutes tops, so that it is not way overwhelming. But for our students who need that additional support, our teachers are there to provide support. Next one. This is a stressful time for students, families, and educators. Concerns about the spread of COVID-19 are around us everywhere. Our teachers play a valuable role in their students' lives by staying connected in this time of uncertainty and heightened anxiety. We know that strong, secure bonds with our teachers are really important in student social emotional well-being. Although the current public health crisis demands flexibility from kids and grown-ups alike, small measures of routine can be comforting for students stuck at home. Now, not all of them will say that, but we do know that routine is good for kids. Kids thrive under conditions of routine and predictability. As you can see here, every Friday has been set as the day our teachers provide ways to focus on social emotional connections for their students. Our teachers are modeling resilience and healthy responses to stress. Kids learn from how the adults in their lives respond to different situations. We are so proud that our teachers play a key role in helping students see that although their daily learning routine at school is different, they can still learn, they can still see their friends and teachers, and they can stay connected while they are at home. And last, we are beyond fortunate to have Michelle Coots, who is our technology CIAS. She has crafted an amazing tool with the Home Learning and Technology Hub. It is truly a one-stop place to find tech training, all of the grade level and content home learning supports, as well as how to connect with kids digitally. Michelle also has a team of teachers and district staff who will work closely with her to provide daily on-demand and live trainings in each of the areas you see in the graphic. In addition, we have 60+ teachers who have volunteered to be part of our tech support team. They provide one-on-one personalized support for any teacher who is having difficulty with one of the ed tech tools. We are all stepping up, and it is such an amazing thing to see. Words cannot express how grateful we are for Michelle and her team who have worked nonstop to help our teachers learn new technologies and how to integrate learning in a new platform, or know how to secure a virtual meeting, or even how to expand previous knowledge and go further for student learning. We would truly be sunk without this hashtag extraordinary team. And I would go amiss if I didn't talk just very briefly, because Jim's going to do more, about our device distribution. Jeff Anderson, Kathy Borgeson, and Don Pace and the tech team have also made home learning possible for many of our families. I want to thank them and that team for their work to get devices to our kids, not once, not twice, but coming up 3 times. In addition, I want to recognize Bob Ramble, who is our warehouse coordinator, and his team for ensuring that devices were at all of the distribution sites each time. Much appreciation goes out to him and his team as well. Thank you.
I'm going
Thank
to
you.
talk quickly about some of the fiscal and business services aspects of all this as we're doing some of the shout outs. And many people have stepped up. So I also wanted to recognize Director Chiarello, our Director of Food Nutrition. She's done an amazing job, her and her team as well. It's, in all these cases, it's not a singular person. They started out feeding about 22,000 meals the first week at about 10 sites. We're on pace to serve over 51,000 meals just this week alone. We'll probably pass 153,000 meals in a 4-week period of time. We've had some hiccups along the way. We're honest about that, but we have modified and adjusted, and we're able to serve well over 31,000 meals in one day on Monday at the at various locations. So I think that's a little bit of a success story. It also speaks to the need that exists out there in the current environment that we're operating in. But a special thanks to all those people that are helping the people that are in need, especially those that have to work directly with the public in light of the pandemic that we're contending with. As Dr. Galligan mentioned, we've distributed over 3,200 Chromebooks. We are in the process of getting so detailed with the distribution of those Chromebooks now that we might be doing this on a one-on-one basis for specific needs, as we're trying to find those people that we have not been able to connect with over the 3 different opportunities that we've provided. Lots of people have stepped up. We'll even have our facilities team and others doing some specialized cleaning as we're trying to make sure that the operations that are still in place can continue to be maintained and safe for those that continue to do the amazing work that's happening. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Z.
Thank you, Mr. Miglerino. So our last 2 slides really capture what we have already talked about today. We will continue having our administrator meetings in a virtual format. We will continue with our meal distributions, meeting that need that is clearly been shown, as Mr. Miglerino showed us. We will move forward with our home learning and our new learning next week, and we will do a great job with that. We'll continue to communicate out regarding some of these important events. And also, we had the device distribution that they mentioned this past week. And then next week, our new learning begins. And then the items that we've already talked about will absolutely continue. And that final bullet point is molded on purpose, as that has come from Dr. Finch and his leadership with us. That truly the most important thing right now is making sure that these connections continue. There is much anxiety out there for a number of reasons. And so the top thing we can do to help our staff and our students and our families is to make sure that we are connecting out there. The final piece before I will certainly field questions, I do want to make sure that we know there are some human resource components and updates to this with respect to COVID-19, but I know Ms. Moffitt has a piece later that she may have some updates for us as well in terms of how human resources has been working with COVID-19. And with that, we would love to field any questions you might have.
Yes, Ms. Tweedy.
I actually just jotted down three that I kind of received this week. The first question, I know you're communicating tomorrow about the graduation. I There was a newspaper article about Peoria and maybe the possibility, and so I obviously everybody was texting me that article. Is that one of the possibilities? Seeing if there's a chance of having a later graduation?
Uh, President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, yes, that is a possibility. We are in the article that you mentioned. I saw that too, and it talked about how they have been in talks with the representatives from State Farm Stadium, and so I too have been in those talks as well with them.
And then can I just ask my three real quick? Okay. My second question, and so just to clear up on the schedules that are being created for the office hours for teachers, are so I guess I'll give some context. Are those generated at the school level, the classroom level? I was one of the challenges some high school teachers were telling me about was there was a large break between 2 hours. And so, and so I wish I had the specifics, so I don't. But with the large break, a lot of students weren't returning. They thought maybe they were going on Xbox or et cetera. I think maybe between second and third hour. I know that might be a problem in my house.
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, we gave the expectation for the amount of time. Each campus created their own schedules, and they tried to be very thoughtful about it, knowing that kids needed to be able to potentially meet with the teachers that they had courses for that day. They don't have all of their courses every day. They have 3. So they wanted to ensure that if you're in a math course, you could be here. If you were in an ELA course, it would be here. If it was a science course, it would be here. If there is a concern, I would encourage our parents, or our teachers, just to express that to their administrator to see if something can be worked out. But I do know that our high school administrators have been very thoughtful and working with their teachers to ensure that the times that are available for those virtual time periods don't conflict excessively for kids.
Okay, so that's a school level, that I guess. And then the next thing I was hearing is some level of confusion. So I hear what you were saying. Deer Valley's grading requirements are, and extending the period. I think some people were saying the colleges for the dual enrollment kids, they weren't going to accept late work and et cetera. So if those kids weren't handing their stuff in on time, they're in danger of losing credit. Are the parents aware of the different expectations if it's a dual enrollment versus a Deer Valley graded class?
President Ordway, Ms. Tweedy, that information is going to go out this Friday because new learning starts for us then. What we do know is that our Rio and Glendale Community College, they have really been working closely with us. One of the things that will be shared is that it's called dual for a reason, because the teacher who teaches that course has dual responsibility to the community college course, but they have responsibility for Deer Valley's requirements. For the most part, Rio and Glendale have said, we are going to work with you on your requirements for grading and coursework. And we're going to figure this out for our kids. The goal is to make sure that our kids are successful in their Deer Valley grade as well as their dual enrollment grade. And so we'll continue to work with those two organizations closely, but they have been very, very accommodating with us when we have asked how can we work together to support kids so that kids are not penalized for this situation.
Just one more thing with the community colleges, it's to your point. They also didn't start up until last week, or because they were still trying to get their act kind of in gear too. So it's not like they've been going on and we just started. So
right, and actually our dual courses, our AP courses, our online pathways courses, and one of our IB courses started new learning last week. They're the only ones that started new learning.
So no, and even, well, with having a son that's a class, I just trying to understand as a parent and hearing this from other parents, I know they have attendance requirements. Are attendance being considered if they attend the Zoom class or if they submit their work on time? Just making sure that the parents understand what the differences are to pass for Deer Valley and to pass for the college, and what is counting as attendance for the college so you don't get dropped from the course. Because as a parent, I think we just need to make sure everybody understands that.
So, what we are considering student engagement is really what we're also looking at as attendance. And this particular slide just indicates that the way we're asking our schools and teachers to identify if kids are meaningfully engaged, it is through they are participating in a virtual meeting in Canvas or Google Classroom. They are completing a meaningful assignment. They're participating in an email or a phone call. And then the key thing there is with evidence of learning. So when we know that we're not connecting with kids, 1 to 10, that's a red flag, and our teachers in our schools are really jumping on it.
So then, and so if they if they don't show up for Zoom, but they submit an assignment and it shows they've learned something, that's counting as having attended the class?
At this moment, for these 2 weeks, yes.
Okay, so it's counting as attendance for college and for high school. So those are just important clarifications from a parent perspective.
Thank you. We'll make sure that's built into the communication on
Thank
Friday.
you.
Yes. Oh, Miss Frank,
Yeah.
did you have a question?
No, I think the questions I had, Miss Tweedy already covered. So,
Miss Reed?
So just to clarify, the high school classes, will those be, or the class times, their conference times, will those be posted on the high school website for parents to easily find?
Miss Ordway, Miss Reed. The home learning steering team has high school people there. One of our principals is there as well. And we did have that conversation, and the overwhelming thought from our secondary folks was that the teachers really don't use their website. They communicate everything on their Canvas course, and parents have access to the Canvas course. If the board would like us to ensure that those virtual meeting times are posted on the teacher website, we can certainly go back and work through that. That was our original thought, but then when we really dove into it a little bit more, really our kids don't go to the teacher website; they go to their Canvas course, and so the communication comes through that Canvas course. However, we can certainly post those on teacher websites if, as a board, you would like us to.
I think it would be helpful just looking at social media and all of the confusion and the questions that the high school parents have had about when their students are supposed to be on a Zoom call, or if they're supposed to be on a Zoom call, or how they're navigating it. I think more of a checks and balance. I mean, I know my high schooler has his schedule written on his whiteboard in his room, but I do every day just, okay, you did this and you did this, and because I don't want him to fall behind, and because he has so much free unscheduled time that it's easy to lose track of responsibilities and not really have a schedule yet. So I know that would be helpful. And then just a little bit of clarification as far as the Zoom calls. I know between my 4 kids, we have 20 teachers. So each teacher seemed to be doing things a little bit differently of whether or not the Zoom call was open for students to just come in and be on and have that time to see classmates, or whether or not they had to make an appointment. So I just want to clarify moving forward, is there an open time for students to be on there during that half an hour, or is that half an hour or that hour specific towards appointments, or is it a combination of what's going on?
So specifically for high school, there are 3 courses per day. And the schools identified what those courses would be on Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. The expectation is that teachers would have a 30-minute virtual time for each of those 3 courses that kids can come in and connect. Questions, those types of things. And there would be time every day for one-on-one appointments, whether a student asked for it, a parent asked for it, or the teacher wanted to have a communication with a student or a parent. So it's a dual thing, and our administrators are aware and have communicated that. If we're not consistent, this is our week to get it figured out for new learning that begins on Monday. The other thing is, if teachers want to use that time period, that 30-minute virtual time for instruction, just flat out instruction, they will record that time period, whether it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that will be recorded. The lesson will be recorded and posted on the day that it happened, so that any of the kids who may not have been able to, whether it's because of technology or they were involved in something else, whatever their schedule is, they can still go in to their Canvas course and pull up the lesson that was recorded. Again, that's for new learning beginning on Monday.
And Dr. Galligan, I would add on too, I believe Ms. Reed, and I'll clarify this tomorrow because Dr. Galligan and I will have some virtual time with the principals. I do believe that there was some discussion about creating an overall master schedule that they would post on the school's website. And so it would have the times for all of these meetings that you're talking about. And so I think that that would also satisfy what you're talking about as well.
The master schedule would be fantastic. And I'm sure that as we're going through and making sure that everybody's on the same page, it would be helpful if all the high school teachers followed the master schedule and didn't make up their own schedule. Because I know that was a little bit of a concern that kids were having to pick and choose which teachers they were going to engage with because calls were at the same time.
President Ordway, Ms. Reed, so that expectation is built into the teacher remote learning agreement. And that's the document that our principals will be sharing and reviewing with their teachers this week in preparation for next week.
Thank you.
So if we have the master schedule on the individual high schools website, that would be less work for the teachers to individually do that. So I think putting it on, if you guys are in agreement, putting it on the school's website would be sufficient, and also stressing that information is on Canvas for both parent and student to access. So they would have 3 or 2 places definitely to check the times, right?
So let me clarify. So with a master schedule at high school, individual teachers in high school would not need to post that schedule on their teacher website.
Correct.
Yes.
I'll reiterate, President Ordway, that Dr. Galligan and I, we do have some time. We believe we're going to be speaking with the high school principals tomorrow, so we can clarify that. But I do believe that was in the discussion that they had.
Because that would make it
Right.
much less time intensive for them to
Right.
to
And
do
if there's
that.
communication going out from the high schools, whether it's a principal or however they might be communicating with parents, if that could be included at one point for them, that would be awesome. I concur that we should all be going to the website and looking for information, but I also know that I've heard a couple of grumblings from some parents that why can't this just get emailed to me? And so that would be awesome. But I don't want teachers to have to post it on every single website if we can do a master schedule. And I don't know if there's a way for that to occur for 7th and 8th grade as well. If to go to that level, that would be awesome. I think the K through 6 or pre-K through 6 teachers tend to do a little bit more communicating with their kids and parents already. And so sometimes our junior high kids in the thing. So, and thank you very much for your attention to that, because I know that was causing probably more angst for parents than it was for students, but it is greatly appreciated.
And certainly continue to remind people that it's on Canvas. Maybe we could get a new habit going for both kids and adults.
And/or talk to your kid.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So for both kids and adults. But if you have the master schedule on the website or on the high school website, that would be
It sounds easy, but it might be difficult. Sounds like good marching orders.
I do have a couple more quick questions, if that would be okay. Have we experienced any issues using Zoom? Do we know of any?
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, last week when we first opened Zoom, we had 2 campuses, 2 classrooms that had a form of Zoom bombing. We've cleaned up the procedures, the security procedures that our teachers must follow for that. And Gary, since then, I have not heard anything since. And that was early on, like Monday for one and Tuesday. So, knock on wood, right now, Zoom has worked fairly well. And our teachers that really wanted to move forward with Google Meet now have that opportunity available to them too.
Okay, wonderful. I just wanted to double check about that. And then when will there be communication regarding how grading will be handled starting April 20th forward for the 5 weeks?
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, that will go out to administrators on Thursday and to parents on Friday.
Okay.
For the 4th quarter or the end of the semester, which starts on Monday.
Okay, wonderful.
So
Ms. O'Brien, we gave them the reminder too, which I'm sure you saw on last Friday and then this past Monday as well, that it would be later this week.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So Dr. Galligan, you said the principals will be getting it on Thursday? Or administrators will be getting it on Thursday?
President Ordway, we did a large grading presentation a week and a half ago, and that included everything: 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, full semester, expectations, and our administrators shared that with their teachers. And then
okay. So the teachers are already
they're
aware.
in the know.
Okay.
What I would like to say though is that there may be just some slight tweaking to that information that was shared, so that we're fairly clear and tight on 4th quarter expectations for grading for K-8, and then end of semester for high school. But every one of our educators knows where our mindset is for grading and helping kids be successful. Really, our focus is going to be on feedback of the learning process rather than the grading itself. Mm-hmm. But let me be clear. Teachers will be grading. Kids will receive grades. It will go into Power School. New learning means we have to be able to assess in some manner how kids are doing.
School is in session.
School is in session.
Why, yes, it is.
That, as I mentioned, 5 weeks, 10 lessons. It is so essential that we are focused tightly and giving feedback to kids so we reduce the gaps that we know are going to be present when we start the school year next year.
Okay.
So that's why we're being really tight about expectations for new learning.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Oh, thank you. We're up to questions and answers, or are we there yet?
Yes, we were there, President Ordway.
Well, that was a very comprehensive look at what we're doing. And again, we have extraordinary people that we work with because we're working for students, right? And so district staff, not limited to you guys, who's taking care of you, and when are you guys taking time for yourselves? Without the smirking, I'm being serious.
Mountain Dew.
Oh, type A's. We can't afford for you to run out of gas. It's totally selfish why I'm asking. So please just take some time for yourselves. And don't lie because your nose will get big.
President Ordway, one of the things that we have done, I believe, just to support our social and emotional needs, is that everything that we have talked about today has been in the form of a team. Educators coming together, sharing the load, sharing their thinking, giving us feedback, helping us get better. And I think when you ask how are we taking care of each other, it's that we aren't working in silos. We are working together as
At least 6 feet apart.
family.
Okay, just checking.
So that is one way we are taking care of each other.
All right, I'm we need everybody. So thank you very much. So we may now go to
We have one public comment,
Public
Mrs. Ordway.
comments.
The board
Yes.
invites public comment on the district's business in general and on any agenda item in specific. All speakers must observe the rules of decorum. Speakers must fill out a card listing name, address, and topic and hand it to the board secretary prior to the president calling the meeting to order. Speakers must make their comments in no more than 3 minutes. If necessary to accommodate all speakers within the 30-minute overall limit, the board president may shorten each speaker's time. Constructive criticism is in order. Rudeness, vulgarity, disruptive conduct, or remarks disrespecting personal dignity are not in order and will not be allowed. Under the Arizona Open Meeting Law, the governing board cannot discuss or act on any items not listed on the agenda. Board members may respond to criticism made by a speaker, ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. And Dr. Finch will be reading this evening's public comment that was emailed in.
This public comment comes from Nicholas Martin. I think it's in response to a conversation with Kurt, Dr. Z, and myself. Talked to the Mirage staff about a month ago. I don't know, Dr. Z, how long that was. But we were talking about boundary changes and personnel projections, staffing projections, and enrollment projections. So it's a long meeting, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. So this resignation happened right after that meeting, and now it's being finalized. And this is from Nicholas Martin, teacher from Mirage. Good evening, Governing Board, President Ordway, and Dr. Finch. This week, my resignation from Deer Valley Unified School District was finalized. For the last 4 years, Mirage Elementary has been my home, and my coworkers have been my family. It is with no hard feelings or resentment that I resigned from Mirage Elementary. On the contrary, I leave with the highest praises of the work of the administration and colleagues. Never have I seen a more dedicated campus or student achievement to student achievement and wellness. My choice to resign has been driven by the decision of district leadership. Teaching at a Title I school is one of the greatest challenges I have done, yet it has also been very rewarding. Over the years, I have witnessed district-level leadership ignore the needs of Title I schools and the requests we have made in order to best serve our students. For 3 years, our staff, our campus, and our parents have advocated for more support. This year, we have been advocating even harder for the support we need because of the decisions the district has made within our region. These requests have not only been ignored, but also downplayed by district leadership. In one case, our parents were compared to CrossFit moms, a bad misrepresentation of the families we serve. I cannot continue to work for the district that does not put the needs of all students first. The needs of our Title I students are not being met. I have tried my hardest to stand up for my students, but with no response or action taken, I can only conclude that it's time for me to move on from DVUSD. I'm beyond grateful to the staff at Mirage and Jamie Wilbur for helping me become the teacher I am today. More importantly, I am grateful for the wonderful and amazing students at Mirage. I will miss them dearly and keep them close to my heart. Please know that all of you are loved. Thank you, Nick. Well, thanks for the feedback, Nick, and we wish you well in your adventures.
Could you provide the board with some information on the requests that title schools are making and the status of those requests?
Sure.
Thank
We
you.
can do that. Yep. We can give a summary of that meeting too. You can some of the feedback. As you know, it was and is still wide open what's going to be happening. So we can HR and I can give you a little summary.
All right, so let's move on to consent agenda.
I move that the governing board approve consent agenda items 4A through 4H.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Hi, Miss Frank. Alrighty then. Going to 5.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to pre-approve the addenda as presented.
I second.
We had information given to us. Is there any further discussion necessary? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 5B.
I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to consider and, if deemed advisable, to adopt a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of school improvement bonds of the district and adopting certain issuance and post-issuance tax compliance procedures.
That was beautifully said.
I second.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. This is actually an acceleration of our initial plan for selling bonds, and that is in light of the volatile financial market that exists today. Watching the market, the bond yields were down again today. That's, I think, 3 days in a row. I know that Scottsdale will be pricing bonds tomorrow, and look to do so at a very favorable rate, very short duration of a refunding of $10 million. We feel that because this is an opportunity, we started to put this together several weeks ago, knowing what the market was doing. Then there was a influx in or an increase in the yield or the price that we would pay for the bonds. It has now subsided back to not where it was at the beginning of March, but still it's in a historically low territory. For us to take advantage of that opportunity, we want to consider selling the bonds. If approved tonight, we have a schedule to price the bonds near the end of April, beginning of May, and that would give us the opportunity to also take the time that we are closed for the remainder of this school year to maybe accelerate some of the projects that the 2019 bond authorization was going to fund. Initially, our plan was to sell bonds in the fall, but there may be other political factors at play in the fall that we want to maybe avoid. So this will actually take advantage of the opportunity. So a special shout out to our bond counsel, Mr. Giel, who is on the call or on the live stream and is available if need be. He's our bond counsel that has prepared the documents that are before you this evening, and all of our financial advisors that help us when we put together these types of endeavors. We have listed in the board packet the things that will be funded from this bond sale. It includes elementary number 32, and I just want to make a comment about that. We did approve the architect for elementary 32. We are tentatively looking at how this current pandemic is going to affect the timing of elementary 32, but we do need to do the design. So we put in here that would partially fund that. So it may not be the construction of the school.
Right.
It may be the architect that was previously approved by the board just to get the design done. So we don't have a timeline on elementary 32 right now. We're waiting for more information as to see how the economic fallout, as I like to refer to it, of this pandemic. But additionally, just noteworthy that we have some building renewal projects that are in here, maintaining our facilities, certainly replacement vehicles, some technology that's funded from this, and some additional things that will improve the learning process when we do get back to whatever the new normal is going to be. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding this potential sale.
Please remember, school's in session. Any questions? All those in favor? Or, Ms. Frank, did you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you
Okay.
for asking.
You're welcome. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. Where are we? We are at 5C.
I move that the administration recommends the board approve the 2019-2020 certified and other professional evaluations due to COVID-19 school closures.
I second.
Ms. Moffett?
Okay, so as you know, we've discussed at length that schools are in session at home, which changes the dynamics of how we can operate when it comes to certificated evaluations. So our proposal that we have for this evening, I want to point out that we did gather our evaluation committee. We have one that is a standing committee per our certified manual. Christy Bushnell leads that committee along with DVEA. They gathered, they reviewed all of our requirements, governing board policies and statutes, and looped out their recommendations to their stakeholders, gathered information back. We also did loop this information out to the DVEA executive board. They took a look at it and also provided feedback to us, and so let me walk you through it. Guiding statutes, I'm sure you're familiar with these. All of these statutes outline how many evaluations we are required or observations we are required to conduct with our certificated staff members. It also outlines how we are to manage any teachers that are under performance review. And also that last statute I listed for you specifically outlines what we're supposed to do with performance pay. We also have policy GCO, and that's for evaluation professional staff members, and we have a regulation attached to that. So in quick summary, what all of these things say in Deer Valley, that you all have approved for our certificated staff members that they need 2 observations for 1 evaluation in a contract. Also, if you remember this year, we brought this portion to you. Previously, we weighted the student achievement part of the evaluation at 50%. We had done that for quite some time, and in statute, it was 33 to 50%. They changed that to be between 20 and 33. You approved the 20. So that's something we have to consider. Also, our 45-day notice processes can't really be managed during this time of closure, not fairly. We don't believe fairly can be done. And then lastly, nothing's been changed regarding the due date of May 15th for our evaluations. So this is what the committee recommends. We are recommending that the board approve a minimum of 1 observation to 1 evaluation. We took a look at all of our evaluations this week, and we see that there are around 38 employees that will need an observation during this period of time. So what that means is that our evaluators are going to need to conduct an observation in this online environment. And so the committee is putting together some recommendations for how to do that, but we do know that we will be able to observe the lessons that they have put together because they are put up online. We can review those. Our administrators can participate in the Zoom meetings to gain some insight as to how they're interacting with the students or performing any lessons in that fashion. And we are fortunate to have an evaluation system that allows our teachers to upload artifacts. And we're asking that our evaluators put a specific amount of attention on the observation side to those artifacts. We also are allowing anyone who would like another observation conducted to reach out to their administrator and ask for an additional observation. There's always that possibility, and so we want to afford that to our employees. 45-day notices, we will pause any 45-day notice that is currently in motion. There are very few, and you are all aware of those. We provide those to you in the those will reconvene should the employee continue employment with us into next year. The 45 days will pick up their first contract day when we resume. And then we are also recommending that the SLO, which is standard 7 in their evaluations, be taken off the evaluation. So we know that some people have concluded those. Very few, but some have been able to give that final assessment for that student learning objective, but most will not have been able to do that. And if you remember, for that portion has to be a research-based assessment or a common assessment that the district offers, and most of those have not been administered yet. So we will not have a method to finish that component. So we have had our proposal legally vetted as well. Denise Lilbert took a look at these options for us and helped us put this together for you this evening. So that was the student achievement data was one of our areas of concern, as statutorily it is required. We will have a way in our system to indicate that this is a very unusual year. And we know that every district in the state and maybe in the nation will say the same thing. The evaluation of all staff members during this year is unique. Something else that we do want you to consider, we're not asking you to take action on this tonight. We want you to be aware of it, is that because we are closed, there will be some implications for performance pay. So Dr. Smith is gathering this committee tomorrow, and they will be proposing that we reduce the responsibility hours from 20 to 15. And that is because it's trying to demonstrate some grace, that there were some employees that may not be able, as they would have before, been able to get as many hours when we are conducting business as we are. And then the second bullet, if no letter grade is given for this school year, which of course we don't anticipate that to be the case, then they will propose that the 18-19 grade will be the same grade that we give for the 19-20 when it comes to the performance pay plan. And fortunately for us, if the board does approve our plan this evening for evaluation, standards 1 through 6 will be maintained, and so that our performance pay plan will be able to move forward in with standards 1 through 6. That will not be a problem for us.
Anyone have? Oh, I'm sorry. Are there any questions?
I have a question. So regarding the professional responsibility hours, I know that everybody is, and there's a lot of organizations out there with free webinars. I know Zoom has a whole ton of resources for educators. Is it possible for teachers to sit in on some of those webinars and use that as like a PD professional responsibility hour?
So President Ordway, Ms. Frank, yes, our teachers would be able to participate in those learning opportunities and could count them as professional responsibilities. However, they may be more inclined to use those as professional development hours. And our principals, we have been speaking with them over the last few weeks about this proposal, and they are mindful of providing opportunities. And it does seem as though everyone has been able to come up with a list of things that they can do to gather these hours. I think the committee may come forward and share with you at the next governing board meeting that they want to maintain the 20. But right now they think they will go down to the 15 again, just to demonstrate some grace.
Right, but I was just thinking for those teachers who maybe, whoever they may be, don't have 15 at this point, if there'd be other opportunities for them. I mean, I think it's smart to reduce it from 20 to 15, but just to make sure everyone who would have the opportunity to at least get 15. So that was just a thought.
Ms. Tweedy?
Well, first, I'd like to piggyback on what Ms. Frank said. I really feel like the professional responsibility hours, because of how this is, should at least be standardized how people can earn them, because if one principal offers something and another doesn't, I do think they should have the opportunity to do, but I think everybody should have the same opportunity. I know in the past, some principals have considered IEPs to be professional hours and others haven't. And I think it's caused, but I could even see a bigger opportunity for it to not be equitable, how people. So I would just ask that we have some guidance so that everybody gets the same opportunity. And then I just had two quick questions, and I could be off on this totally. The first one, are probationary teachers allowed to only have one observation, or was that only for continuing teachers in statute?
So statutorily, all teachers should have 2 to 1 at a minimum. The statute also states that we can provide a provision if the board were to approve that with certain performance ratings, that those teachers could only have 1 observation to 1 evaluation, and that's after they're continuing. And just as a side note, this same committee that put this together has already reviewed a proposal to bring that to you. Probably they would have already had this not happened, likely. So maybe May, June, we'll bring that proposal to you for implementation next year. But to answer your question specifically, that used to be true, and that is no longer true.
So everything, the attorney looked at it, and there's just, because I understand all this and I agree with it, but I just was, there's no legal repercussions we need to be considering.
Well, it's a great question, and that was ours as well. We, as you know, we paused for quite some time thinking that we would get some specific guidance, and we knew that there was some dialogue downtown regarding this, and because nothing too specific came our direction, all attorney groups that are used to working with school districts, Udall, Shumway, Gust, Rosenfeld, and so on, began to work on this. So I had been working with Denise since earlier, and these are some things we put together, and then they put out a paper this week with some recommendations, and we fit within all of those recommendations. She also gave her blessing to this proposal.
Yeah, I think at this in these times that we're not looking, or the state isn't going to be looking to gig us for doing something that we had to figure out how to do it. I mean, the important part is that the teachers have taught the students, and they're keeping up on their hours. So I think this is in the spirit of that. Mrs. O'Brien?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask if we could have a reminder in the Friday update about which teachers are under a 45-day notice currently.
And you guys are holding those hands. Anyway, Dr. Finch?
I just wanted to add a little bit too. I think this is a forecast of what's going to come the next 5 weeks. You're going to see a general 30,000-foot recommendation from the governor or the state board or Ms. Hoffman, and it's going to pass the responsibility to local boards. So that will make our attorneys super important, because there are many landmines in all of these decisions that we will be making. So including graduation and grading and all of this, we are not getting direct guidance from the government. So we are, like our NEVIC brothers and sisters, working on this together to make sure that we're our attorneys across the state are agreeing on our moves that we're making. So you're going to have to make decisions like this moving forward.
Local control.
Novel concept.
Mrs. O'Brien?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so let's vote.
Okay.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right. We are on, we did.
We're at the Union Park School field signage. I move that the governing board accept the administration's recommendation to approve the Union Park School field signage in conjunction with the USAA contribution agreement.
I second.
President Nordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So this goes back many months ago. I think years is probably, you have to go back that far to be able to understand all of the history involved here. But back in September, I'm going to abbreviate this in the interest of time, we actually entered into a contribution agreement that gave the naming rights of the field at the new school to USAA. with your approval. This is a little bit different than our advertising policy, but it was approved as part of the condition of that contribution agreement. That gave them naming rights. At the time, they mentioned that it was going to be either a military or a patriotic themed name. This was well in advance of us knowing the name of the school or the mascot for the school. And they liked the name the Eagle Fields because the eagle is their logo. In fact, some people didn't realize that until we helped point that out. We realize that is not the name of the school, nor is it the name of the mascot for the school, but it is our partnership with them for their contribution in participating with helping make sure that the school became a reality. And so what we have for you this evening is a rendering from the architect of what those signs would look like. There are a total of 4 signs that would be placed. One out on Whitethorn Boulevard, so near where the staff parking lot would be, so on the far southern portion of the campus itself. There would be one on the baseball backstop, one on the softball backstop, and then one on the western portion of the field, which would be where the soccer field would be, overlaying the both baseball and softball field. And so there's a rendering there for each of those signs. The baseball one would just be duplicated except on the softball field, and it would be called the softball field instead of the baseball field. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have regarding this.
I don't have a question. I have some comments. When we agreed to the naming of the field, I guess where it said May, I just never really anticipated that a business would take over a school's, try to name a field after their logo while it's a campus with kids that are not going to be eagles. They're going to be toros. And I know this probably sounds a little weird as the words come out of my mouth. They're toros. They're not eagles. Also, the school then feeds into Goldwater. We have already issues with schools that feed into Goldwater that go up the block to O'Connor, where they are eagles. So the confusion to me is clear. And then also we made an exception. We've never named a field or had a field named after anything but the school other than Jack Dillard Stadium. And that was because he was a longtime employee that passed away. So I guess I just wish that this dialogue could have taken place with people from USAA here to understand that the confusion of naming the field the Eagle Field when it's Union Park Toros, I mean, we already went to the Union Park part of it, it just makes zero sense. And I don't feel that it's a good partnership. And when someone says the Eagle Field in partnership with USAA, who is the Eagle Field? It's the Toros. So I wish that there was a way that we could have had a discussion amongst the board with them prior to seeing it called Eagle Field. I understand that I was part of making that approval. I just never anticipated a corporation reaching that far, taking advantage, I guess. I don't know. It just didn't occur to me that they would name the field after their company as opposed to after the school that the kids go to. So I just
Ms.
don't.
Ordway, I have a comment when you're finished.
Yeah, I'm just really, I don't know if they weren't given that information, if it was not important to them, and I get that they're a great partner, but to me this is just not about kids anymore. This is more about I know, I've got an eagle. I mean, we don't even have a Toro there. So it's just bothers me. Mrs. Frank, go ahead. Or Miss Frank.
So, my interpretation of this when it first came before the board, and I abstained from voting on it, was this is not a contribution. They did not make a contribution. They bought the rights to name the sign and name the field as a purchase, and that's not a partnership. So I'm not surprised that they're slapping their logo all over it, regardless of the name or the mascot of the school. I agree with Mrs. Ordway. That will be extremely confusing, and I never thought it was a good idea to begin with. They didn't make a contribution to us. They purchased naming rights, in essence. That's, to me, when you make a contribution to an entity, there's no strings attached. Well, there were plenty of strings attached to this. So I've been outspoken in the past. That's my opinion, and so I can't support this. So I'll leave it there.
Miss Tweedy.
And because of what Miss Ordway said is why I didn't vote for this either. I don't think it's appropriate for a corporation to take over a public school like this. And I still don't think that's appropriate. It should be about the kids. It should be about their school. When we build a school, it should be about the community and not a corporation. I've been uncomfortable with this arrangement from the beginning. I won't be supporting it again tonight.
Mr. McReno. So if
I can answer.
go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
why
go
not jump in here? First of all, Mr. Miglorino's being gracious. He spent years on this project, and it actually goes back to the land is where it actually starts. Because remember, we traded land that we weren't using, so that's where it started. And he's been working with different entities in different states for years on this. Yes, USA gave us $350,000 to fix the fence and shelters and turf and et cetera, with the understanding that they would be able to have some signs. And he has voiced his concern. I did as well, but I think there was no ill intent, be it not a relationship to O'Connor, for example. That's just their logo. So that first threw me for a loop as well until I got the explanation that was their part of their logo. So that's where I learned about it. Is it the best scenario? No, but it's, from my perspective, it's very common in sports arenas, high school and college and professional, to have a different name for the stadium or the thing. So it's a different scenario for us. We don't have this scenario too much in our system, but it's not the first time. But we
don't have this scenario in our system.
We just mentioned one, the Jack Dillard Stadium.
Jack Dillard Stadium died, right, and he was an employee. And I don't want to get into.
No.
I'm glad for the partnership.
Right.
But how there could not be a compromise. I mean, USAA is going to be on there with the flags,
yeah.
But to take the name of the field away from the school where the children will be playing, just seems to me that shouldn't be such a big deal to name a Toro field, have the Toro holding an eagle. I mean, I don't care how that happens. I just don't. It makes zero sense to name a field. That's Eagles. Not the name of, of the school that's there.
I understand.
For me, anyway. And I appreciate the partnership that we have. I know that you worked really hard, and I also know that the donation of the $350,000 is extremely generous. But I do know that most of our schools, if not, well, you'll tell me the percentage, are built on donated land, so, or not traded, but whatever. So that part of it is not exceptional. It is gracious, but it's something that we do, and there's not been another company that's asked us to name something. I don't care about having the logo and the name. It can be everywhere. But to name the field after something other than what the school's mascot is or the name of the school, to me, is just not right. And what are the repercussions if we do not approve this?
That's what I was going to ask,
Mr.
Mr.
Ordway,
Hager.
I just um, you mentioned that the word "may" is used in the agreement, and
Well, it says they may use it.
they may use their logo, but it gives them exclusive naming
Right.
rights to the
Okay.
field. The agreement is pretty specific in that
Okay.
regard. The only option is whether or not their logo is included in the sign.
Okay.
So that was granted to them when we agreed to
Wow.
this agreement. And I will tell you that they have contended before we named the school, before we actually contemplated a mascot, they indicated to us that it would be a military theme or patriotic themed name that they we were more concerned about it being something more military oriented
Oh.
and not being approved. But the agreement, just so that we don't end up in some sort of
No.
controversy related to this, I'll say, it says such name to be subject to the reasonable approval of the district. That's why it's before you this evening. So I think we're going to have to provide some specific information as to why Eagle Field is not a reasonable name when they indicated to us
That it would be military.
that it was going to be a military named or patriotic themed name.
Mrs. Ordway.
Yes.
So I'd just like to clarify my previous remarks. I did not intend any disrespect to Mr. Miglerino. I know he's worked very hard on this, but I didn't agree with the proposal, and he is correct. It did state in there it was naming rights to the field. I didn't agree with it. That's why I abstained in my last vote, and I'm going to be consistent with my vote and my belief that that's not any disrespect to Mr. Miglerino or the work that he has put into this.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Brien.
So I do understand some of the, I guess, consternation that having a field called the Eagles when we're the Union Park Toros and we have the Sandra Day O'Connor Eagles. However, as a board, there was a majority vote to go into this agreement, and we did agree to give them naming rights. And I liked the idea that we might have a field that had a military name or something along those lines, tribute to potentially our country and the hardworking men and women who work for our freedom every day. So while I could see the potential confusion for kids, my kids went to O'Connor, where it had already been named Jack Dillard Stadium, and I can tell you that I don't think I ever heard anybody call it the Jack Dillard Stadium while I was there. I know that it was referred to it during football games and whatnot, but as far as students and parents, no one said, I'm going to the Jack Dillard Stadium. It was, I'm going to O'Connor to watch a football game, or I'm going to Sandra Day O'Connor. So while this might be a lesson learned moving forward for us, what I would say, though, is that the old days of companies giving us land to build schools are probably gone because of the world of charter schools now. And we work in partnership, and I would hope that our board would support what to me is a reasonable naming of the field at Union Park.
Thank you. Ms. Reed, anything?
My personal opinion was I thought that the signs were really boring. No, it just was, I don't know if there's a way to, like Mrs. Ordway said, to tie in the school a little bit more, or have the school colors around the sign, or something that would tie maybe the three entities together as far as the district partnership, it being at the school, and then the USAA logo. That might be a little bit more of a win-win, or something that we could also put the name of the school on there too. I don't know. I don't know what all the agreements were as far as what the design of the sign looked like, but I don't know if that's something that might be sufficient.
President Ordway and Ms. Reed, just if I can comment about this, the agreement does not preclude us from putting up other signs. So the school will be identified as Union Park. These are not the only signs that we're allowed to display on the school.
Oh, thank you.
So this is just to honor the agreement.
Okay.
These signs are specifically designated for that. You know, the district logo is represented
Yes.
prominently, so that there's no mistaking that it is a Deer Valley school. And I think that there will be other ways to capture the name of the school and the mascot separate from these signs. This is simply to honor the agreement that we have with USAA.
Okay.
If
I
I
appreciate
can
that.
put on my superintendent hat again, the agreement was hammered out by multiple sets of lawyers as well before we approved it, and so as Ms. Ordway referred to, there may be consequences if we decide not to approve it. I don't know what they would be, but to Ms. Reed's point, we can put our own sign right next to it if we'd like to identify it differently. So I'm not worried about that.
Well, I appreciate that larger perspective. Are we ready to take a vote?
Oh, I'm ready.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor say nay.
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 Alrighty then. Moving on to our preview.
I think that's me again.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're up again.
President Ordway, members of the board, Dr. Finch. So last time we were together, we talked about the fiscal year 21 salary recommendation. We reconvened the NST meeting just last week, late on Thursday, and then on Friday we got new information. So we're going to preview the salary recommendation, but it is still incomplete, and I can share some additional information that will be different than what you'll see in front of you tonight. So these slides are the same, and just in the interest of time, just recognition for the committee members. I don't want to downplay that too much. They've worked hard and still have work left to do. Again, we met on April 9th. We do plan to meet between now and next week so that we can prepare something more concrete for the board to consider for the next time we get together, which is scheduled to be April 28th. Just in case you were curious, April 9th was a Zoom virtual meeting, and so will the meeting between now and the 28th. But that has served us well as we've adapted as a committee. So here's the work that's been done. We made the revision based on the skinny budget that the legislature did approve. So we've made some reductions to what this was originally previewed at the last board meeting. So I used the strikeout so you could kind of see some of the changes. District additional assistance is the big change here. Instead of being full restoration, it is partial restoration. Speaking in round terms, went from $4.8 million to about $2.4 million. So that was the reduction that we were concerned about. This revision that we're sharing with you tonight then reduces the total salary increase to just over $8.8 million from just over $11.1 million previously. And that again is going to change from, and I'll share that as we walk through this. A lot of this other information really remained the same. Again, here's the revenue that we're expecting. This is showing revenue in the amount of about $8.8 million, 776. We actually think with the carry forward, with the March report that was looked at tonight, almost $400,000 increase. That'll reduce that carry forward negative number of $800,000 there. So add about $400,000 to it. We also are expecting some other increases in the form of student numbers that get updated regularly by the Department of Education. And because again, this is all based on current year funding, so we're also trying to predict what next year's numbers are going to be based on whatever numbers exist for this year. But that almost $9 million that you see here includes the reduction for the partial restoration of district additional assistance, but it probably does not include all the revenue that we would expect. Again, the carry forward will increase not only from the March report that that Ms. Mock mentioned earlier in her presentation this evening, but we also have the the budget revision that is expected for the first meeting in May, which will add to the potential carry forward. If we project out what that would look like, that's going to be something just below $13 million in potential revenue. Once we get that all worked out, that'll be I think the new number that we might have. We have to offset that with the increased cost. This is showing about $5 million worth of increased cost that's projected, just over $5 million. That this is also a very dynamic number. This is probably going to be a little bit higher than the $5 million, not much, maybe $100,000 to $200,000 more than what's seen here, which would give us approximately $7.8 million in additional revenue that is unallocated, plus the carry forward from this year. And this was very intentional. We set aside $2.1 million in this year's budget. We were going to issue it in the form of a payment to employees in fiscal year 20. NST voted and agreed to actually move that forward into next year. And that is a continuing revenue stream for us. So it's not a one-time money. So we don't have to worry about being able to sustain that. But this is showing that we would have the potential for about $5.8 million in resources that could go towards additional salary costs, salary increases, I should be more specific. We think that with that additional revenue that I mentioned, that could be closer to $8.8 million. And again, because it's a very dynamic situation, and again, wanted to give credit to Ms. Mock. Some of the information that we received came out late Friday from the JLBC, and so she's worked since Friday to be able to compile this information for us. And this was included in the packet prior to the information on Friday. What that would mean is that would give us $8.8 million worth of revenue. We originally proposed that it was going to be a 7% increase for the certified and other professional staff increase for next year, a 5% increase for the classified staff, and a 4% increase for the admin exempt group. We have modified that because the legislature approved that skinny budget and reduced it by $2.4 million. We have revised that to be 5.5% for the certified and other professional staff, 4% for the classified, and 3% for the admin exempt group. There are a couple other nuances that we've mentioned before, and I'll get into those about other changes in here. The other thing that changed on Friday is the Classroom Site Fund is going to fund a portion of the final payment of the 20% by 2020 initiative. This is a very technical aspect of things. We originally had $2.7 million expected in Classroom Site Fund dollars that would fund that. The Classroom Site Fund allocation was issued on Friday. The amount went down significantly, and it's been reduced from $434 per weighted student count to $385. That's more than 11% reduction. So that's going to have an impact on the salary recommendation. But in addition, the $2.7 million is not going to be realized here, but it's going to be actually offset with the base level increase. So it's actually going to end up being about $1.6 million here, but the base level will offset that. So we still are being able to, receive money for the final 5% of the 20 by 2020 initiative. It's just going to come from different sources than what we originally expected. And the total M&O cost of this salary increase would be $6.1 million. If we had $2.7 million coming from the classified fund, if it's actually going to be $1.6 million, it would have to be $7.7 million, correct? Just the difference between the 2.7 and the 1.6 that we actually realized. But again, that's in the revenue projection that we have because the base level will increase. So with all that being said, and this is unfortunate, we put all this together. This is how our world is or has been for the last 4 weeks. Is we put something together, then we put it on the shelf, and we modify and adjust as becomes necessary. So this didn't change, but this funds our professional growth that's earned by our employees. That did not change. This is the change that going from 7% to 5.5%. And the other thing that's updated here is this would be a full percentage increase. We allow each group to determine how their salary increase would be distributed. Typically, that's a portion of it being a percentage increase and a portion of it being a flat increase or some combination thereof. Last year was a full percentage increase, and the DVEA leadership has voted, and they believe that it should be a full percentage increase again for next year as well. It also, whatever the increase is, will affect the starting salary amount. So that has been adjusted to make sure that a continuing second-year teacher does not make any less than a first-year teacher. And there's that 1 year separation that we like to have in the dollar amount between a first-year teacher and a continuing second-year teacher. Just mention that this has not been ratified by DVEA. We just met, again, it was last Thursday late, and then there's been some changes since. So we're going to have to meet again, and so will they, to try and determine if this is an agreeable solution. I will mention that during that meeting, the DVEA folks did recognize that both groups received a 1% reduction in the form of the classified and the admin exempt. They went from 5 to 4 and 4 to 3 respectively. But the certified and other professional staff went from 7 to 5.5. So there was a 1.5% reduction in their salary adjustment from what we originally presented to you. And as a result of that, we modified a trigger language that I'll show you at the end of this recommendation. This did not change as well, other than the percentages. So the classified again from 5 to 4%, but the rest of the information that's contained in here does have the provision that deals with compression that's been caused by the minimum wage increase and a reclassification for our paraprofessional staff. That did not change. They did confirm, and this did not change from last time, that there would be a 60% of their raise would be a percentage increase, and 40% of their raise would be a flat dollar increase. The only thing that changes when the percentage changed from 5 to 4% is the amount that the flat increase changed, went from 32 cents to 25 cents per hour. The only change here on this page happens to be the administrative amount and the flat dollar amount associated with it as well. Again, from 4% to 3%, and the flat dollar amount decreased down to $11.92. But their request is for it to be 50% of the raise to be a percentage increase, 50% of it to be a flat dollar increase from the BLT team. This says pending GLBC determination. That was, it is in statutes due by March 30th because of the dynamic of the financial fallout again of the pandemic that we're contending with. It took them many extra days to actually come up with the allocation because they are trying to forecast the impact of this over the upcoming year on what will happen with sales tax. And so they did come up with something, so we can include this information, but we were only able to share it with the DVEA leadership as of today, as we were calculating numbers still. So that information would be updated. That would be, I think it's important to note here, if we handle it in the way that we've handled it in previous years, it would be a reduction to the flat dollar amount that is included in the teacher contracts. Because the teachers are the ones that are eligible for the Classroom Site Fund. They've received additional money since 2001 when Classroom Site Fund went into being, and it is subject to the changing amounts. This has happened one other time. It was a 2-year period that there was an adjustment made, and the Classroom Site Fund went down, and consequently, the amount the teachers received went down. What we're proposing here, and just to put it in perspective, on average, the reduction from $434 per weighted student count to $385 per student count would be about a 1.2% reduction in the amount of money that teachers receive. That would be offset by the 5.5% increase. So they would still get an increase, it just wouldn't be realized at 5.5%. Again, that's if we handle it like we've handled it in previous years. It would affect those that are below the average greater than those above the average, because it's a flat dollar amount that is allocated to every teacher or every qualifying employee's contract amount. And it's unfortunate when we have this happen, but what is likely the scenario that will play out in fiscal year 22, the amount will likely go back to, something $420, $430, something like that, depending on how the economy recovers. And so it will increase, it'll rebound the very next year. But if we treat it like we've treated it for the first, 19 years of having the Classroom Site Fund in place, it is an adjustment that is made up or down based on what happens with the allocation that is established by the Joint Legislative Budget Committee, or what we call the JLBC. So this is an unfortunate new development that just came out as of Friday evening. So more to come about that. I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'll get through these last slides here. The trigger language did change to make up that 0.5%, again, because the teacher and other professional staff went from 5.5 to went from 7% to 5.5. One of the things that the NST folks could agree on during our April 9th meeting was to make sure that that first $500,000 in revenue would put that 0.5% back for that group, so that their raise would go back to 6% based on the very first trigger. From the numbers that have been crunched over the weekend, we think that it's very likely that we'll hit that $500,000 threshold. And we think that if we were able to hit the next $1.8 million in terms of additional revenue, let's say the legislature does come back into session and does decide to fully restore district additional assistance, then we can go back to the original proposal, the 754. And so that's the second trigger that you see here. And any additional money beyond that, we would want to fund the special education positions that are part of the Futures Report that are new for next year. We have those being currently funded from our Medicaid and Public Schools program, and to make sure that they're have a sustained revenue source, we would like to move those into M&O at some point in time. Again, if we have additional money, we'd like to do that as part of the third trigger. Typically, when we have trigger language, we have a minimum threshold like that we retain just because of some uncertainty, especially due to current year funding. But one of the concessions that we had during our conversation with the NST was to establish that that first $500,000 would, regardless of any additional contingency money, but that first $500,000 would make sure that we would get to a 6% raise for our teachers and other professional staff. And again, based on what we're forecasting now for the May budget revision in this year and additional revenue sources, we think that we can get to that so that they have a 6% increase. But even at that, even at a 6% increase with the offset on the classroom site fund, it might only be realized, again, on average, as 4.8% of an increase for teachers, even giving them a 6% increase in M&O because the classroom site fund dollars are going down. The only, again, just to reiterate, the following year, if I could predict sales tax revenue that far out, I probably would have a different job. But if it returned back to pre-pandemic levels, then it would probably actually even increase beyond what the reduction would be for next year. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about this. I think we have more work to do, but I would love to get some feedback from the board as to the framework that we've developed so far.
Well, that was awesome. Thank you. Ms. Tweedy.
Thank you. I would just give my feedback. I think based on what you said about the site fund, I mean, just to go back with the history of this, on the Auditor General's report, we were obviously below our peers on teacher salary. To say we're giving you a 5% raise that's not going to be realized because you're losing money in another pot, I think we have to look at the money, additional money they would be getting and think of that as the raise you're offering. So it would be like 4.3% maybe.
Yeah, 4.3 at the 5.5%. If
So
we're actually able to do 6, it would be 4.8.
but the
yeah.
money they're actually getting would be a 4.3, and we're giving admin a 4% raise, and 4%, 3% raise. Okay,
4% for classified.
and classified's 4. So just my feeling, we've taken 1.5% from the certified group, and it's actually going to end up being more than 1 because of the 301. And I don't know that that accomplishes our goals of offering a competitive teacher salary. So that would just, and I think because to say you're getting a 5.5% raise when you're really not because you're losing money from another pot is probably going to go over like a ton of bricks. Like I think you just put it out there as you're going to get this much because you're losing money out of another pot.
They've known that from the
And-
beginning, though, that it was 2015, that it was 20 by 2020 was off of previous dollars. So they knew previously that it wasn't going to realize 5% in the end anyway. It wouldn't be off of last year.
Okay.
So we've been preaching that from the beginning, but your point is well taken.
I'm just saying because you're losing money from another pot, which has nothing to do with that, and they're the only group losing money from another pot, and it has to be considered.
Well, I think they're the only group that gets money from that pot.
Well, if I could jump in, I would just agree with Ms. Tweedy. I was an employee during the years Mr. Miglerino alluded to when we were the only group that lost money because of classroom stipend going down. And I think when you're telling people you're getting a 5.5% raise, but you're not actually getting that, and no fault to the district that the classroom stipend went down, but it doesn't really promote a feeling of trust. And the feedback I got back during those years was the district office isn't being honest with us. They're hiding money. You know, it really does not promote a good atmosphere if you're not honest. I mean, I think it's better to be honest and say, this is what we can give you, minus you're losing here from the classroom site fund, and then when that goes back up, and you would think, well, teachers all understand that, and no, they don't. They don't. So I think it's just better to be upfront about it than to bill it as a 5.5% raise when that's not what most people are actually going to see in their paychecks.
President Ordway, Ms. Frank, yeah, if I could speak to that, I think that's part of the messaging that maybe we need to be more practical with the employees about, but from the aspect of the commitment that we're making from the various pots of money that we have available, this is how it would actually unfold. But maybe from a practical messaging standpoint, we just need to be honest with them and say, hey, you're getting a 4.8% raise as opposed to a 5.5% raise. because they would maybe understand that more than trying to say, well, it's 5.5% less the amount. But for our purposes, to know exactly where the source of money is coming from, we would need to at least have some indication of where the sources of money are being allocated based on the board's decision of approval for the salary recommendation. But yes, from a messaging standpoint, I think you might be more accurate to say, let's not confuse the matter with the math, if you will.
Well, I think that it's not that you were not being honest. I think that clarifying that here's your raise, here's the pot of money that you get. This money has gone down, so therefore, that's what it is. It just bothered me that you said to be honest, because you are honest.
No, I'm not saying Mr. McLarino is being dishonest. I'm saying from the point of view of the employee, because I know when I was an employee, I would hear, "Oh, but we gave teachers a 2% raise."
Right.
And
No.
completely leave out, because we were the only group that are subject to the highs and lows of classroom stipend.
Right. No, so and I understand that. I guess what I was saying when I just wanted to be clear that we are honest. We just need to clarify. And also the message that the Teacher Association gives out in an explanation could be something that would be a uniformed message.
No, I agree with you. And just to clarify, I wasn't suggesting that anybody today was trying to be shady.
Oh, no, you didn't say it. Jim said it himself.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Jim.
I just think the more honest and transparent we are, the better it is in the long run for everybody.
Right. I think the word transparent is one that should be used, but is not a word that can be interchanged with honest, because I believe we are always honest. I think that sometimes there's confusion in a message. Anyway, okay. Anybody else?
I do have a question.
Yes, Ms. O'Brien.
Thank you. Mr. McLarino, in the original recommendation, all three employee groups had a split between a percentage as well as a flat rate. And so can you help either, I guess, maybe explain or help me understand benefits as well as maybe why the certified staff went away from that recommendation, unlike the other two groups?
So you are correct, President Ordway, Mr. Bryan, you are correct that the original proposal that we previewed at the previous board meeting did have a split between a flat and a percentage increase for all of the groups. And it also had the note that this had not been ratified or by the DVA leadership. They did take a vote, and their vote, I believe, I'm citing this from memory, I think it was 80% of the vote was in favor of a full percentage increase, as opposed to having it be distributed between a flat and a percentage increase. So they made the recommendation for it to change as a result of that vote. And in our manual, in our certified manual, the way we handle the salary increase, it actually states that each group gets to decide how they would distribute their share of the salary increase.
For point of clarification, the vote that occurred, was it just the DVEA leadership, or was it a vote that went out to DVEA members, if you know?
I believe it was just DVEA leadership.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is...
Board specifically.
So their executive board. Then what are the pros and cons of doing it as a split and a flat versus just a percentage? Thank you.
President Ordway, Ms. O'Brien, the pros and cons, a percentage increase, when the entire salary increase is a percentage increase, the higher salaried employees get a larger increase. When there's a flat dollar amount, it does provide for a greater increase for those at below the average, because you're providing a flat dollar amount increase. So depending on how it's weighted between the flat and percentage increase, can skew that. We actually worked up a couple different scenarios for the employee groups as they were trying to determine what the percentage breakdown was going to be. And surprisingly, it doesn't change the number a lot when you're talking between the difference between a 50-50 split or a 60-40 split or even a 70-30 split. But when you move it to 100%, either as a flat increase or as a percentage increase, it does have a pretty significant impact. And significant is probably not the right word. Over time, if it was established as a percentage increase, there would be a compounding effect, one way or the other. Again, if you did it either as a 100% percentage increase or a 100% flat increase, it would have a compounding effect over time. And so to do it over a short period of time, last year and this year, it wouldn't necessarily have the same compounding problem that would exist if it was done over 5 or 10 or 20-year career. So just as hypothetically. And one of the comments that the DVA NST members made was because they're still reflecting on, and I caution from even uttering these words, the salary calculator that we use. So we had a salary grid that we used when we first received Proposition 123 money, and we made an adjustment to make sure that we created distribution of those funds that provided for giving credit for years of service and professional growth that they would have earned over the years of service that they had, not only with us, but that they brought to our organization. Many employees that have been with us for a long time only received a $500 increase from those Prop 123 dollars, from just those dollars specifically, and they like to refer to themselves as being part of the 500 club. And so I think this is in reaction to that they think the percentage increase will help reward those people that were part of only receiving a $500 increase from Prop 123 monies, which that was 5 years ago. But people remember things.
And so you talked about the teachers who are making below the average, who don't receive as much because the percentages. So for clarification, those would be our teachers that have less experience, the teachers in the 1 to 5-7 year range, right? That are making the lower salary, and where we have, and I guess this question would be for Mrs. Moffat, do those teachers, is that where we have more of our turnover in that range?
I would have to look into that for you. Off of the top of my head, last time we reviewed the numbers, that was not necessarily true.
Okay.
In all groups.
Okay, thank you.
The national average would be true to that number. We lose 50% of our teachers in America in the first 5 years, and we're probably similar. Because we're accelerating and doing so well, we probably lower that number. But to your point, Ms. O'Brien, that would probably be true in general. I want to add a couple comments too. Another thing that's actually happening in your system when you do full percentage is they start quickly climbing, as Mr. M said, the compounding effect. They begin to pass the lower administrators, deans, and AP, etc. So that's much like the minimum wage caused an acceleration from the bottom of our support staff, and they started compressing together as well. It'll be the exact same problem if this continues over time. You'll see an acceleration to pass administration at the lower end. So that's one thing you need to be wary of, because it does have a consequence. I think two other points. One is the legislature. I think I mentioned to you in a Friday update, and in other places, the legislature is highly unpredictable at this point. What they're going to do. We've been meeting with legislators, and many of you have as well. No one knows what's happening downtown and where it's going to land, and it's all because the economy is going to be unpredictable, and there isn't a legislature alive that doesn't like to waste a good crisis to make more cuts. So I think we should be, as the NST gives us recommendations, I think it's still going, the pressure is going to be on the board to be wise about the possible, maybe more negative numbers to come, I guess is my point. So 2 weeks ago, we gave you the rosy picture. This week, we're giving you more reality at this moment. But in 2 more weeks, we could have new numbers that are even more negative. That's the numbers that we're starting to see. It sounds like President Trump is pushing for the economy to open in April 30th, plus or minus, and you'll probably see Arizona follow. I'm assuming it'll start to open slowly. So we are way behind in sales tax revenue, and to the tune of almost $1 billion. So we do have federal money coming in. Obviously, we can't supplant. We can't build our machine on that. That's one variable that's coming. So we'll still use those dollars, but we won't be able to put that in salaries. But if the sales tax doesn't come back, that's really what our machine's built on. So it's very imperative that we are all listening to the temperature of the legislature and the temperature of the economy as we get closer to making this decision. It'll be, the NST will give us recommendations, but the onus will be on the board and myself to give us good recommendation to protect the district into the future.
Right. And to that point, I noticed that on the PowerPoint that Mr. Miglerino presented, it looks like this would be coming back on April 28th for a vote for this board. And if I understood correctly from what I heard, or I should say what I read, is that we won't even have the true numbers from March until the beginning of May, and won't understand the full impact of what April did to us until the beginning of June. Now, I know there are statutes we have to follow regarding our budget, and their concerns about employees understanding what they're getting paid. But I do think those are also dates I expressed, in our meeting 3 weeks ago, that I'm concerned about approving something that we would have to undo before we even start the budget year or the school year on July 1, never mind talking about the sustainability of that into the next year, given what may or may not happen. And like Mr. Miglerino, he would like to predict sales tax. I'd like to have a crystal ball to predict a couple of other things. Unfortunately, neither of us have those abilities. So I guess what I'm trying to, very long-windedly, and I'm sorry it's late at night, to express to you is I'm not going to be really excited about voting on something on April 28th.
To Mrs. O'Brien's point, if I can jump in, I would agree with that, because there's too many unknowns with the economy. There's too many unknowns. I mean, we could open the state up on April 30th and then have another spike in cases and have to close things down again. There's just too many unknowns. And unfortunately, it's harder to take something away from someone once it's already been given. If we think, well, we can give them this increase, and then things don't pan out that way, then we're having to go back and cut. So I would echo Mrs. O'Brien's concerns on that point. And then I had another question. I know I jumped in, Mrs. O'Brien, so if you had more you wanted to say, I'll wait with my question.
I'm all done. Thank you, Ms. Frank.
Okay. Sorry, it's kind of hard when I can't see people, so you can't see me. I did have a question. There was some mention in a couple of board updates ago about reclassifications at the district office, and I haven't seen that. If it's in the budget proposal, I don't see it. If you could point that out. Or is that something that's no longer being considered?
President Orway, Ms. Frank, on the slide that's titled Deer Valley USD FY21 Budget Overview, on the expenditure changes, there is a line for additional operational support. It's got a value of $320,000. That includes the district office staff and reclassifications that you're mentioning.
Okay, we should probably, that'd be something I'd want to discuss separately, not tonight, but I definitely think that's something we need to look at if the economy's tanking and classroom site fund is going down and we're not really sure where things are going to go with sales tax. My personal opinion is not the time to start reclassifying people.
And that may be
However
true.
much you may want to do it.
That may be true, but perhaps we should see what the reclassifications are before we make that kind of a blanket statement.
I would just concur with Miss Frank.
Okay, anybody else? Because it's getting late, and I think our thinking caps are almost sleeping caps now.
All right, this is a discussion for another time, not tonight.
Oh, absolutely. I don't know if you have if there might be a list of rationale and positions that are in reclassification. We could get that at some point.
Yeah, I made a note of that, and we'll include the detail of that in upcoming update.
Okay, so
Thank you, Mr. McGlarino.
So I think we're done, and I really appreciate all of the energy that we have at this moment in time. I'm going to make a motion that future meeting dates
Are posted.
Da.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.